All right, so today we're going to be doing LeetCode question 217 contains duplicate. So for this question, you are given an integer array nums, right? And we want to return true if a value appears at least twice, right, within the array. If not, then just return false if every element is distinct, which is basically saying if the element just happens once, right? Like example 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, none of those values happen more than once, so just return false. When example 1 appears twice, so we're going to return true. So first things first is we have to think about it and try to break down this problem, right? The problem is asking if a value within the array appears more than once. What is a technique that we know that is specifically used to see how many times a value happens within an array or a list? Well, a data structure that we use for instances like this are hash maps, right? Huge indicator for when we have problems like this, when we're trying to find if a value appears X amount of times, that is a hash map situation. You could probably use a lot of different data structures, but hash maps are primarily used, right? So what is a hash map? I mentioned this before, but a hash map is also known as a dictionary where you have a key and a value pair, right? So if we were to take a look at example 1, right? And this is the array we were given, and we want to create a hash map using these values. Our hash map would look like this. 1 appears 2 times, so our key would be 1, right? And our value would be 2 because it happens 2 times. 2, our key would be 2, and our value would be 1 because it only appears once. And vice versa for 3. 3 appears 1, so our key would be 3, and our value would be 1. So we now know what our hash map is going to look, and we can basically just say, we basically could look at this example and kind of see what we need to do already, which is we convert this into a hash map and then just take a look at the value pairs. If the value of anything is greater than 1, then just return true because it happened more than once, right? So now we have basically a plan. We know that we need an A, right? First step is to create a hash map. Then we know that part 2 is loop through hash map. And then step 3 is check if value is greater than 1. So now we know that we need to create loop and if statements, right? Now as we kind of have that in pseudocode, we kind of have an idea of what we need to do. Let's start writing the code to implement that. So first things first is create a hash map. Create a hash map. You can name this whatever you want, set equal signs, and put curly brackets, right? This is a hash map. Now we want to add values within our hash map. You can do that by just doing this simple couple lines of code. We are adding the values within nums, right? So the values in nums have to be in the hash map. So we're going to loop through nums for x and nums, right? If x is in hash map, then we're going to do hash map at index x plus or equals 1. Else hash map at index x equals 1. So what 14 through 18 is saying is loop through nums, which is this, right? Loop through nums. And if the x, if whatever we're on in nums, is in hash map already, then we're going to just add 1 to the value because it's appeared more than once. If it's a brand new number we haven't seen yet, then just add it to hash map and make the value 1. So how that would look like is, okay, let's look at nums. Let's iterate through the first. Is x 1 in hash map? Nope, hash map's empty right now, so we're going to add 1. Now we go to 2. Is x in hash map? 2 is not in there right now, so we're just going to add 2, right? So, and then we're going to go and loop to 3. Is 3 in hash map? Nope. So hash map at 3 equals 1. So that's going to look like this. And then now we're here. Is x 1 in hash map? It is already. So hash map at index x, this is this, add 1 to it. Now you add 1. So instead of 1, now it's 2. And this is what our hash map will look, which lines up perfectly to what we said it's going to look up here, right? Perfect. Now we have a hash map. Now we need to loop through it, right? How can we loop through a hash map if instead of like a normal loop, right, where it's just 4x and nums, because we have just one thing inside a list, how are we going to loop through something that has multiple things, right? You have a key and a value pair, a key and a value pair, and another key and another value pair, right? How do you loop through that? Well, what you do is just do this for key and value and hash map dot items, right? So you have two variables within the for loop, right? So instead of just 4x and nums, you have for key and value in hash map dot items. So the dot items is basically just a function that allows us to have 2 instead of 1, right? So what can we do here? So key is equal to this, and value is equal to this. So every loop, right, for the first iteration of this, let's say this is our hash map, we would be looking at this. So key would equal 1, value would equal 2, and let's say we go to the next loop, right? Now that would equal, key would equal 2, and value would equal 1, and then we go to the other loop, key equals 3, and value equals 1, right? So if we could literally grab the values now, this is exactly what we want to do. Check if the value is greater than 1, right? So we're going to just literally have this here, right? And we'll check if value is greater than 1, we want to return true, right? Check if value is greater than 1. If so, return true, right? This is basically saying, okay, well, if this number is literally representing if this number has appeared more than once in the hash map, right? These numbers represent how many times they've appeared. If a number is greater than 1, it has appeared more than once. So if that's the case, the question is saying to return true. So that's why we have this right here, return true. Else, return false. So we're going to write that outside because this loop, we're looping and looping and looping, right? 1 loop here, 2 loop here, 3 loop here, right? So we loop 3 times, and every loop we're checking if the value is greater than 1. If it's not, then we've looped 3 times and the loop ends because we've checked everything else inside of the hash map. And then if we haven't reached this edge case, if we haven't reached this if statement, basically saying if this value's appeared more than once, then that means no value has appeared more than once, and we're just going to return false, which is why we have it outside. So taking a look at everything, I think we look good. I think we met all of the conditions we wrote down for our pseudocode. So if we click run, everything should work. Beautiful. Let's give it to submit to see if we do all the test cases, and yes, we do. Perfect. So key points to take away is when seeing how many times a value has appeared, specifically within a list, most of the case, use a hash map. Right, hash map is known as a dictionary because you have a key and a value pair, right? This is what a hash map would look like, right? This is a normal list. This is a hash map. Your hash map has you have keys and values. We're going to write this down so you can see what everything is, right? This line here is pretty universal. Whenever you want to add values within a hash map, usually from a list, you're going to be writing this exact line 99% of the time. So this is a very important section, line 12 through 16 to remember. And if you want to loop through a hash map, we use the function .items, right? .items allows us to basically loop through both the key and value, so you're able to use them whenever, and you can compare, write edge cases, and so on. And then we have the return true within this edge case, and outside, if the loop ends and we don't reach that condition, we return false.